Shouldn't the CSP support us as physio, i.e. physical therapy, and not allow authorities to stop us from doing manual therapy?
A really interesting question, and will be probably from probably a local commissioner decision, I presume, rather than anything else, because the CSP has not stopped anybody doing anything. Half the time we get asked to say, can we stop everybody using electrotherapy? That's not one I get quite regularly. So it's interesting, and it maybe whether it's because of that fashion versus the evidence base that people seek to stop doing things. But I'm not aware where this is happening, and we would want to, if we knew if this was a particular area, so this is a particular decision that's been made, we would want to be aware of it so we can actually raise it with the relevant commissioners. So if you know that there is an area where this is happening, come and talk to me.
Certainly from a Bupa perspective, I don't know the specifics of this treatment, but what happens from an insurance view is that we have a range of medical directors, and we very regularly get questions from across the whole of the sort of the healthcare environment about can you approve this treatment? This has worked really well for me. Can you approve it for someone else? We are regularly being asked, and obviously, I guess the answer is if there's published medical evidence to suggest that it is an effective treatment, then we will always trial it, and more important than anything else, getting the evidence that it actually works. So we're always open-minded about it with medical guidance.
Thank you very much. And the next question that's been flagged up really is, should we be addressing the training of physiotherapists to include more hands-on, despite the NHS placements not reinforcing this?
In terms of what the HEIs are teaching, we review every single curricula of new courses and existing registrationable courses across the UK. I'm going to be taking away, because I've heard it quite a few times over the weekend, that there seems to be a move in certain universities about doing far less in terms of even sort of like touch in terms of palpation assessment, heaven help actually techniques beyond that in terms of manual therapy. So I'll take that away to actually raise that with our team, because we do actually go to the universities and speak with students, the lecturers, everybody. And that team that go out are also lecturers from other universities that will do a deep dive into what's happening. So I am somewhat surprised if this is going on. I'm not dissing the actual your experience of what people are saying to you, but we do need to unpick this, because it has been a part of our profession since certainly the Royal Charter, as Tim says, since 100 years ago, which is next year. So again, I will actually take that back, because I think we do need to be really looking in detail about what people are perhaps actually not covering in the curricula for the actual qualifying programmes now.
Great, thank you very much. There's a question that's come in regarding Bupa, so I'll hand the mic, or please feel free to pick up the mic. If there is standardisation of quality outcomes required by Bupa from its physio providers, surely there should be standardisation of physio fees paid by Bupa? Tricky one.
Tricky one, yeah. Good question.
That was bold. Would you like to stand up?
I mean, I haven't got a crystal ball, obviously. And I've probably made the point, hopefully, that we are on a journey here. We don't have standardisation of measures yet, but we definitely want to work towards having standardisation of measures. We recognise, obviously, that patients are different. And we want to be able to provide, to pay fairly, if that makes sense, to say it very, very simply. And we do review complexity, we review the amount of work that goes in. We want to be able to review the outputs that come from that. Like I said right at the beginning, I'm not the commercial person, so I can't answer that any better. But hopefully with the advent of standardised outcome measurement, we can pay much more fairly, and I think that's what probably everyone wants to get to.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that was well answered. Could seeing people with persistent pain every 6 to 8 weeks for progression of exercises, activities, advice be beneficial to support them through self-management?
I don't know, but it is a question I'd love to know the answer to, if anybody has any evidence.
I'm a patient at the moment, and I'm following the Escape Pain programme, and my physiotherapist asked me about what is it that I wanted from her, and we agreed that that's what I'll do, is I'll have a check-in point at a point that I thought was going to be beneficial, so she can ask me about how I'm going on with my self-management and how that's going. And so I'm going to be, I've agreed with her that I'm going to give her we're going to have a telephone consult in 3 months' time. So I think this is about what is the best for the patient in front of you. You've heard that the whole weekend. That's the most important thing. So I think if that's what the person wants, and it's about shared decision making, then I think that's what's wrong with that.
Thank you very much. And it'd be interesting to get your direct feedback, actually, having gone through that process as well. Somebody has just actually asked, can we have a vote on how many people have heard from a patient that they've not been touched or undressed for an examination within an NHS physio?
Yeah, I know it's anecdotal, and I know it's just one person. My mother-in-law is 85. She's had back pain for 2 years, 3 years, and it's stopping her walking. She's eventually got her GP to refer her to physio, and that referral is going to consist of 1 15-minute telephone consultation. So she's not going to get touched because it's a phone conversation. They will then decide on what the appropriate exercise program is going to be, and they're going to email it to her. She is 80 blinking 5. How is she going to download a PDF attached to an email and then do what those? I mean, it may be a bad example. It may be a completely off the wall. I don't think it is completely off the wall, and we're not doing ourselves any favour. I know there's constraints on the system, but in terms of the show of hands, it tells a story. How is that portraying physio in a positive or a good light? And the downside, and it's a conversation I had outside, and it may not be the conversation I'm supposed to be talking about here, the downside is that physio as a profession will get labelled with that kind of stuff, and therefore when the patient... I think I want Jeremy Vine. Woo! When the patient then says, blow this for a bunch of cherries, I'm going to have to spend some money and go and get some proper help, they are then going to be less likely to arrive on your doorstep because you're going to get labelled with what they've just received, which is pants. And that's not fair, but that's what's going to happen. And if I was in your position, that's what I would worry about.
I just wanted to make a comment because it's interesting. I'm aware of certainly the big corporates, the big three, Ascenti, HealthShare and Connect Health. All three of them, and they're right over the country, some more in the south, some more in the north and east and all the rest of it. Their business models are based on a telephone consult first. And so a lot of people never get past that telephone consultation. And I have visited some services where they do then get sent from somewhere else in the country, from their, I don't know whether it's their hub or whatever, the exercise thing that comes through the post. So that is a commissioned model by your local commissioners. And that's where, we are, the CSP will highlight these, this is, deleterious to the patient as well as actually to other people when we know about them. But they're doing that because the local commissioners are doing it on money. And they are winning the tenders away from the services that would see people face to face, because that's going to be a much cheaper model of care. The only bit of, I think, on the horizon that I'm in a bit of sunshine, possibly, is this government, apart from Brexit, is actually looking to repeal quite a few elements of the Health and Social Care Act. And one of the big elements they're looking at is actually removing mandation of procurement for community services. And I think that, so you might see a sea change then. But that was brought in with that Health and Social Care Act of 2012. So and where those services are going out, they are being replaced. Now, for some people, you know, I have a telephone consult with my GP, and that's fine because that's what I've wanted. But I think what you've got is that patients aren't being given the choice. It's actually, this is the only thing that's actually available to you. And you've got to go through quite a few hoops. So I can understand what you're saying. And the CSP will raise those issues in those areas where we're made aware earlier on that that can have been, you know, it's going to be not to the benefit of patients in that population. And we know there are, at the moment, there's some really big complaints going on in some of the services where this has happened. And the complaint levels are absolutely, you know, through the ceiling because people have started taking action. So I think, you know, we will be working with those places to actually say that this is actually not good for people.
I work in the world of medical negligence and hear physios saying that they're frightened of being sued, so they prefer not to touch patients. Anyone like to make a comment?
Yeah, I will. Part of my role is actually to review all the clinical negligence cases that come in to the CSP. And I've reviewed 15 years of data. And touching is nothing to do, it's never, ever been an issue. Not ever, 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 ever. But what is harm from other things. But the types of cases that we see are still really small for the size of the body that is physiotherapy. So, yes, there were cases of misdiagnosis, and that included, and it's interesting, isn't it, because 20-odd years ago, we wouldn't be talking about misdiagnosis because physios weren't really doing it. So nowadays, misdiagnosis is actually quite one of the bigger ones, and that could be anything from really rare conditions to CES to whatever. The other ones that are small but significant are burns. Burns from electrotherapy. This is people just not applying it properly. And some of them are full degree burns. Honestly, you know, I always get a sharp intake of breath when I say that, but that's what people are doing. Mostly with interferential from the pads, wheat bags. I don't know what they're doing with the wheat bags, but to give somebody a burn from them, heaven only knows what they were doing. And from shortwave and other things. We have had pneumothoraces from acupuncture needle in the right apex. But, you know, that doesn't do any long-lasting harm anyway. I mean, it sounds dreadful, and obviously is distressing for the individual, but it's, you know, it can quickly be sorted out, and they heal up really fast. So there are some, but this one is not one of them at all, not ever. And people, I don't know why people are so worried. And I think it's really interesting. The other thing I found just by interest is even though that the physiotherapy profession, including Physio First's makeup, is majority women, you're more likely to get a claim against you if you're male. Okay, so I've got loads of information on that if you want me to have, you know, any more information, but that is not one that people actually ever say anything about. There's no evidence of that at all.